drop, as Asma was saying, in birth rates in the last 10 years. In 2021, women in England and Wales were having an average of 1.55 children compared to 1.94 in 2010. They're kind of meaningless notions because you can't have 1.94 children, obviously, but it is a significant fall. Earlier we spoke to the Oxford professor John Ermish, who did the research.
10 years ago, women were having more or less replacing themselves. Every family was having 2 children. Now, they're not going to replace themselves. So while most women still say they want to have 2 or more children, they're not ending up having them. They're having 1 child or no children. And that's why the average goes from around 2 to 1.5.
Yeah, you need 2 to replace ourselves, and we've dipped below 2, and they're saying that women want to have 2 children, but they're not. Why are they not? And should we be concerned about this shift? Are we just experiencing the same sorts of change that's already happened in places like Japan and Germany? And what is the response? Miriam Cates is Conservative MP for Penistone and Stocksbridge, and she recently told the National Conservatism Conference the lack of babies was the most pressing policy issue of the generation. We can speak to her now. Good morning.
Morning.
Why is this such a problem in your view, Miriam Cates?
Well, I think the best way to look at this is the economic challenge that it presents us with. So you talked about how we need a replacement rate of 2.1, it is really, babies per woman in order to replace our population. Because what you need really is 1 baby for every 50-year-old to make sure that when those 50-year-olds get to retirement and need a pension and need perhaps more healthcare, the babies have made their way into the working age population and are able to pay tax and provide for the welfare state. Now, obviously, that's a very cold, clinical way of looking at it. We don't have babies generally for the purpose of the economy, but in terms of how our economy and society works, it's absolutely vital that our population pyramid is essentially bigger at the bottom and declines as we go up, just to maintain the population that we have. And a birth rate of 1.55 doesn't sound like a massive drop in the last 10 years. It's actually a 21% drop. And if we continue at that birth rate, it means in just 2 generations time, we will have 40% fewer babies than we do today. So if you think that, our NHS is underfunded now, that our taxes are too high now, we've seen nothing compared to what's coming down the line with an inverted population pyramid. So it is a huge economic challenge.
And what's the reason? There's lots of potential reasons. People have been sharing their thoughts all morning with us. What do you think the reasons are why over the last 10 years, and presumably if we go further back, this has been a general decline here. Why are our women having fewer babies now?
Well, this is a very complex question, and I am not an expert by any means. There are a number of experts in this field that, could recommend you speaking to. But I think overall birth rates have declined since the Industrial Revolution, and that's a good thing. People were having large numbers of children because infant mortality rates were so high. And so you kind of needed to have a lot of children to make sure some survived. Now, obviously, we've made huge improvements in science and medicine, and we don't need to do that anymore. But since the 1970s, across the Western world, birth rates have dropped much more significantly. This is not a problem unique to the UK. It is pretty much the whole Western world, and actually now the developing world as well. In fact, it's a global problem. Only 3% of people now live in countries where the birth rate is not declining. Now, there are lots of different theories. I think some of the common ones, you've talked about education. There seems to be a clear link between women being more educated, which is obviously a really good thing, and delaying having children. And the problem with delaying having children is that you are then factually less likely to have a child. So, we kind of think at the moment, it's normal to have a child in your 30s, but biologically, women are most fertile between 16 and 25. And if you don't have a child by the time you're 30, some data suggests you've probably only got a 1 in 2 chance of having one. We just don't tell people that. We don't talk about this. So instead of thinking, how do we make sure more people can have children in their 30s? Maybe we should be asking, how can we guarantee to women that they get the same opportunities at career and education if they take a career break slightly younger in their lives than later? These are the kind of questions we need to be asking. Also, I think economic and social security, so not being able to afford a house as early as you did before, marriage rates being lower. There are lots and lots of questions to ask, but we do need to talk about it.
Is this a sign, actually, that it's one of the downsides of progress? Because ultimately what we've seen over the last 50 years, that women were seen very much as their fate in life was to get married and produce children. That's been the case for the preceding thousands of years as well. And there's been a revolution, a cultural revolution of sorts, which quite rightly says women and men should have the same opportunities in life to pursue their careers. And maybe this is the only way of fixing that would be to have better shared childcare, a better sense of shared responsibility, so women can have babies, maybe in their 20s, maybe in their 30s, and still have a shot at equal opportunities in life?
Well, that is a theory. Certainly, modernity, more education, more equal opportunities seem to coincide with women delaying having children. Although, as the study shows, it hasn't stopped people wanting children.
Yeah.
And actually, there's a big social problem here, isn't there? If women get to their 40s and really are disappointed and upset, and it's a personal tragedy, isn't it? If you then don't have children, and we don't want people to be in that position. But there are different. You said it's a fate to be a mother. And that's quite an emotive word. I mean, there are certainly downsides of being a mother.
But that's what it was. My point is, I'm not saying that's my view. I'm saying that's what it was.
No,
that was the view.
But I think you absolutely hit the nail on the head. The way we talk about motherhood has become, it's a drudgery. It's, sometimes even it's being oppressed. Now, that's not true at all. It's incredibly fulfilling. Of course, we need to support mothers, support parents, make sure we have enough help with childcare, with taxation, all those things. Absolutely. But we shouldn't be talking about motherhood as if it's second best. And I do think that's key to why women are not having as many children, or not wanting as many children, or finding it harder to have children.
So are we edging around the notion here, Miriam? There's an interesting point in this. Would you say that we've sort of downgraded the role of motherhood? So are you saying that this notion that a mum, should have a baby and stay at home to look after the baby, is that something that we've moved past in the modern society and we should look at again? Are you saying, would you go that far?
Well, there are plenty of women who want to do that, and all the polling, even the DfE's own polling, suggests that the majority of mothers of young children, so under threes, would prefer to work less. That doesn't mean everyone wants to stay at home the whole time, of course not, but the tendency is to want to care for your own child, at least, for a large period of the time when they're very young, and there are good biological reasons for that as well. Now, why do we think that's a bad thing, and why do we think that's second best? If we can guarantee to women that they will have career opportunities later, that they can go back into a career at the same level, that they can be properly financially supported during that time of staying at home, why is that a bad thing? We've put a value judgment on that doesn't necessarily have to admit. And I think the childcare argument's very interesting as well, because the logical thing to think is, women will have children if there's lots of free, high-quality childcare. I went to Finland recently. They have exactly that system, free, full-time childcare for every baby from 10 months. It's very high quality. Staff are higher quality than here in the UK. It costs the government a lot of money. Their birth rate is one of the lowest in Europe. 1.3. And they are asking this question, what are we going to do? Our economy, our society is going to collapse. So I don't think it's clear at all that you provide free childcare and women will have children, because the biological instinct to have children is not just about being a machine that produces babies. It's about actually wanting to care for those children as well. And of course, many women have many, many different ideas of how they want to care for their own children. And I think the key point here is choice. We need to have a society, a tax system, a welfare system that promotes choice, that allows women to have children when they feel they want to have children, to be properly supported, but not economically disadvantaged.
Another thing you mentioned, I'm interested because I see this phrase, I don't understand it. You said sort of cultural Marxism has contributed to this. I don't really understand what cultural Marxism is, Miriam.
Well, that's because it has been completely misreported, what I said. So in my speech at the National Conservatism Conference, which I think you're referring to, I went through all these arguments as to why people aren't having children. So the problems with the economic problems, the cultural security issues about, people settling down later and all those things. And then I said also, and I wasn't saying this was a current cause of low birth rates, but also that our young people now have a lack of hope, and they have a lack of hope for the future. And I think we can see this in the rising levels of anxiety and depression amongst young people, and sadly, even suicide. And I'm saying that one of the things that has contributed to a lack of hope, I think, in young people is these kind of critical social justice theories that are being taught in schools and universities. So climate catastrophism, critical race theory, gender ideology, that are very confusing to children and have kind of divorced them from the reality of what life is about and where meaning comes from. And my personal opinion, and I completely accept there are many points of view on that, is that those theories, which in some, in many kind of centre-right circles are known collectively as cultural Marxism, those theories are contributing to young people's lack of hope for the future. But I did not say that cultural Marxism is causing low birth rates. I just didn't say that.
So you're not saying that wokeness is causing low birth rates?
I'm saying that wokeness is causing a lack of hope and anxiety in our young people, and who knows what impact that may have on family formation in the future, but obviously we have no evidence of that now. But I'm saying that current low birth rates are a combination of economic, social and cultural conditions not being ideal for reproduction.
And just before you go, Miriam Case, is the short-term solution immigration? You know, that Britain is going to have a much bigger population. There's a story in the Times today that we're going to have 16 million people more in the next 20 years. So even though we are declining in terms of birth rate, we're growing because of net migration. Is that a possible solution?
No, it's not a solution. It's there are obviously some labour market advantages, depending on how you look at it, to importing people to fill our labour market. Personally, I don't agree with it. I think it reduces GDP per capita, so it's not a good thing for people overall. But it's a short-term solution because, I go back to what I said in the beginning, only 3% of people in the world now live in countries where birth rates are not declining. The countries that are currently sending us workers and their spare population, if you like, are very soon not going to have the spare population. Secondly, immigrants get old. Their birth rates are similar after one or two generations to the native population, so that doesn't help. You just then need more immigrants to fill the working population. So, there are obviously a wide range of views about immigration itself, but it's not an answer to the birth rate question.
Miriam Case, it's such an interesting topic. I got so many people get in touch about this. It affects absolutely everyone and their life choices. Thank you for sharing your thoughts on it.
Thank you.
That's Miriam Cates there, the Conservative.